Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to SRM Varsity Extra right here on the Chase Thomas podcast, where we talk all things high school football all across our great state of Tennessee. Joining me, first timer here, Stephen Hargis of the Chattanooga Times Free Press is here. Stephen, it's getting chillier, and football playoff time in East Tennessee is here. Does it feel like playoff time to you? How did this season go for you now that it's just crazy that we're in the playoffs at this point?
Hey, Chase. Yeah, it really is. The whole season kind of went by in a blur. I was just thinking about that earlier today, just looking back on it, like, wow, we're already, a week. We're approaching our second week of playoffs. Last week is the first time it really felt like the temperature is kind of cool, so it actually felt like it should be the playoffs. Every week before that, it didn't even feel like we were leading up to the playoffs. It was just, I was covering games in shorts and a T-shirt. But now we're actually into football weather. I'm going to have to layer up, for the next few weeks, I'm sure. But it does feel like it. We're kind of getting down to the teams that we thought would make a playoff run, or the ones that are still around, and some of the others have already put their equipment up and practicing basketball. So, yeah, it definitely feels like playoff weather now.
We call it playoff weather, but I was talking to Meigs County head football coach Nathan Simbeck yesterday, and I asked him, I was like, is it actually football weather when we say that, or is what is actual football weather? And he said it when it's hot, and I think I agree with him that's actually football weather. We just love to say that cliche that the colder it is, the more football weather it is. Do you agree?
We do, and it may be like a mental thing where we all, us Southerners who born and raised in the South, we all hate the winter for the most part. We hate the cold.
Yeah.
Couple of days this week that I absolutely hated to have to get out and go to work in. So maybe that's, we all love football so much that we say, oh, this is a good way to say it where I can enjoy it being cold out there because it's football season. But yeah, I would agree with Nathan on that one. I much prefer to cover games in, maybe not in August when it's 98 degrees and smothering humidity, but certainly in late September and into October when it's, maybe shorts and hoodie weather. That's what I say is always perfect for me, when it's just cool enough at night where you're having to wear like a light hoodie, but you can also wear shorts. And that to me is perfect, where the tracks are dry, the football field's dry. So the athletes can show out and do what they do. But you know what? I've been around long enough that if it means making it sound better when it's so miserably cold that, hey, it's football weather, then that certainly helps me mentally prepare for it then.
I love it. Well, let's talk some football here. I mean, the traveling is the big thing. You were tweeting about it this week. It's the big story with the playoff structure and the playoff format changing this year by the TSSAA. Just how crazy is the travel for East, West, and Middle Tennessee schools this week?
Yeah, you kind of, I guess it goes along with it. During the playoffs, you expect you're going to have some of that travel. And, a lot of teams in the communities that support the schools actually enjoy those road trips sometimes. But it's definitely one of those things where if you're at school that kind of struggled through the season and maybe you're in a smaller region, you only made the playoffs because you're in a 5-team or even a 4-team region where maybe you technically, if coaches off the record would say, I don't know that we belong in the playoffs because we were 2-8, 1-9 kind of thing. You factor in the fact that you now have to travel, go on the road and play a game where you know that you're going to be a decided underdog. You're probably going to lose pretty badly and have to, rent buses, pay a couple of meals to feed your kids. It gets really expensive this time of year to take something. It's one thing if it's a game that you've scheduled for the regular season, but it's something completely different if it's a playoff where, those are supposed to be a reward for a good season. But if you didn't really have a good season and now you're having to pay $4,000 and $5,000 for, to rent a bus for travel and to pay to feed your players, it kind of puts a lot of these smaller schools who are already strapped for cash, it puts them in a real bind sometimes.
When you've talked to coaches throughout the year, and especially this fall as the season's kicked off, have you found that the majority were in favor of the change to the playoff format or against it?
I think most of them didn't really know exactly whether they were for or against it until they experienced it. Most of the coaches I'll talk to kind of had a general idea of how it was going to work, but they're more like me. I'm a visual learner. Maybe they had to experience it to see if they like it or not. because I haven't really heard a lot of guys say one way or the other just yet. Most of them that I've spoken to from our area are more or less of the opinion of, well, let's just wait and see how it shakes out this year, and then we'll determine whether it's something we like or if it's something we want to, say, hey, let's kind of like the Z plan a few years ago that they had in the playoff format. It was universally disliked, so they got rid of it. This might be something like that where it goes away, or if the majority of teams are say, hey, this is something we can adapt to and we don't mind it, then we just kind of have to wait and see how it plays out. It's always interesting when you have something that changes, because for years and years, you kind of understood how the brackets shook out. You could get a feel for your local teams, how they were doing, and see how they were going to match up against the region opposite them and where they were going to go. Now, there's a little bit more of a difference there in terms of, okay, I'm not really sure if my local team wins, where are they going to go after that? You have to put a little more thought into it. So it's one of those things where I kind of agree with the coaches. I want to see how it plays out this year before I form an opinion.
I like it. Is this the year Baylor gets it done, Stephen, in your estimation?
They should. I mean, they, barring injury, they are so talented on offense. And the fact that they went to McCallie and kind of got, the grill off their back there in terms of knocking off McCallie. And now if both teams win Friday, the rematch would be at Baylor. So, everything's kind of laid out for them to do it. They just really need to stay healthy, is the biggest thing for them, because if they're healthy, then offensively, they're just a nightmare to try to defend. I mean, when you've got David Gabriel Georges, obviously most folks know about him, the Mr. Football winner last year, number 2 ranked running back prospect in the junior class. But, Briggs Cherry, their quarterback, is one who kind of gets overshadowed because of all the recruiting hype for David. But Briggs is really someone that could very easily win Mr. Football this year. The numbers he's put up, 24 touchdowns and 0 interceptions so far, well over 2,000 yards passing. He's headed to Louisville. He's really the guy that makes that offense go, and he's got a couple of receivers in Caden Dewey and Jamian Theodore. Jamian Theodore is headed to Tennessee to play defensive back, but those two guys are a couple of speedsters that he can just take the top off of a defense throwing to those guys. So it's kind of one of those pick your poison kind of things. They're really good up front. They can just mash you and let David Gabriel Georges run behind them and pick his spots to really abuse defenses, or Briggs Cherry can go over the top. So it's one of those things where you have to pick and choose. Most high school defenses are going to have to choose, okay, we want to take this aspect away. Well, that just opens you up to something else that Baylor does equally good. So, yeah, long way around the block to say Baylor should get it done this year.
But if they don't, Stephen, is McCallie the team for you that it would not surprise you if they won state, or does it feel like kind of a gap year there?
That rivalry has been the one thing that you kind of get used to covering those two teams is the unexpected. And it would not shock me. I mean, at this point, it would surprise me for sure, because the game would be at Baylor, but it would not shock me if McCallie found a way to win that game, just because McCallie, they get overshadowed this year because of the offense that Baylor, the offensive numbers Baylor has put up. But McCallie has been pretty stout themselves. They've got Keyshawn Tabito, really speedy receiver, one of the top prospects in the state, headed to Vanderbilt. They've got a couple of quarterbacks who can really, kind of interchangeable in what they can do. And Xavier Filion is an underrated running back from McCallie. Was banged up a little bit earlier in the season. When he's healthy, he kind of really gives them that added punch that they don't have otherwise. But McCallie's defense has been really opportunistic, and they had Baylor on the ropes at times in that first game that they played. So it's going to be tough for them to go to Baylor and win that one. But, man, that rivalry, some funky things always seem to happen. Last year, nobody gave McCallie a chance to beat Baylor because Baylor had just hammered McCallie in the regular season. And then in the state championship game, McCallie, has the huge run in the second half. Once they got momentum is such a big deal in rivalry games, and that really kind of reared its head last year, where McCallie, once they kind of weathered the early storm and got a little momentum going their way right before halftime, they pretty much owned the second half and were able to kind of rally and win what was a really unexpected state championship last year.
Around East Tennessee, though, what is the matchup on Friday that you have circled that maybe a lot of folks, if they're trying to figure out where they want to go watch some playoff football here around the Chattanooga, East Tennessee area. What's the playoff matchup that you might recommend that's kind of under the radar here?
I would go to Decatur, Tennessee. Get there early enough. There's a little mom and pop restaurant just down the road from Meigs County High School, and I would go watch Sequatchie County at Meigs County.
Yeah.
Two state ranked teams in 3A. And I tell you, it's one of the things that I love most about high school football are the rural, small towns that just absolutely they're just smitten with their high school football team, and everybody in the town turns out to support the kids. And that's going to be one of those places. Sequatchie County is going to travel really well. They're going to bring a lot of their folks from Dunlap are going to be there for that game. And Meigs County, it's one of the most underrated places that I go and cover a game every year. The atmosphere at Meigs County is really something special. I mean, it's one of those Friday Night Lights kind of venues that you go to, and you can just feel, the fans will get there 3 or 4 in the afternoon and put blankets down to reserve their spots, and it'll be standing room only. So that's one that I would certainly, if you just want to go watch a good high school football game and a great atmosphere, I would go to watch Sequatchie County at Meigs County. The
best player you've seen in person this year has been who?
David Gabriel Georges is just a freak. I mean, he's just a complete, we had Gerald Riggs played at Red Bank here locally back in 2001 and was the USA Today #1 ranked running back in America at the time. But I talked to Gerald about it and asked if he had seen David play, and he said, yeah. He said, I was not nearly that good. And I mean, no disrespect to Gerald, but he wasn't. I mean, David Gabriel Georges is just a different type of athlete that we haven't seen as a running back in our area maybe ever. I mean, he's, like was mentioned earlier, the #2 rated running back in America. I'd love to see the #1 guy who's better than him, because he's just done some freakish things pretty much every game out that he has played. You watch him and you just go, that's a guy who's going to get paid a lot of money to play football pretty soon.
The most underrated team in Chattanooga, East Tennessee this year for you has been who?
Oh, man, that's a great question. It may be Tyner. Tyner for us in 3A, I don't think has gotten the amount of love that they probably should for what they've done. The only loss they've had all season was to Nashville Christian, which obviously has Jared Curtis, the 5-star quarterback who's going to Georgia. And that was an absolute shootout. That game was 49-42 at Nashville Christian. So I think Tyner really gained a lot of confidence by going there and playing as well as they did. They've got a defensive backfield. They've got a kid who's headed to Southern Cal. They've got a kid who's got Tennessee offers. I mean, they've got some dudes on that Tyner team that I think a lot of people are not really aware of just yet. And if they can continue to do what they've done all season, next week, both teams survive. They could have a really interesting matchup with Gatlinburg-Pittman in the quarterfinals. And then after that, potentially a Meigs County, Sequatchie County winner could be on the horizon for them. And then, if they were to make it back to the Blue Cross Bowl, which they won in 2022, most folks think they would get Martin Westview, which would be really interesting to see Simpson going against the Tyner secondary. That would be a great matchup. But I think Tyner's one of those teams that has played really well all season and just probably hasn't gotten as much love or as much hype as they deserve.
My final East Tennessee football question for you, though. Who is your coach of the year based on circumstance, the situation they walked into, and where you had them coming into the season versus the result?
As far as what he's built in a short amount of time, you look at Jason Fitzgerald at Sale Creek. Sale Creek had never really, they've never won a playoff game, never hosted a playoff game, had never won more than I think 6 games in a season. They're 10-1 right now. They hosted a playoff game for the first time ever last week, won their first playoff game last week. They've got a good chance, a puncher's chance at least, against Rockwood in 1A, because they're hosting that game. So, the fact that if he could somehow get them to the quarterfinals at a program that only started 12 years ago, and had never really had much success before he got there in a very short amount of time, and this is his 3rd season there, he's turned them into a 1A team to really watch for the future.
I love it. Final thing here, Stephen. I thought this would be kind of fun off the beaten path here. But as a 30-plus year veteran on the beat and knowing more high school football here in Tennessee than any of us here, I wanted to get your expertise on this. If you were able to be put in charge to fix the divisions, classifications, or anything in TSSAA football going into next year, what are you doing? You have the authority to fix the divisions, the playoff, all that. What are you doing?
I would probably take it from 6 public school classifications down to 5. I think 5 is about right. I don't think you can do 3. I've heard some people say go back to 3 like they used to have. That's too few. We've got too many schools now. That would really eliminate some of the really smaller schools from being able to compete. So I think having 5 classifications and probably take maximum only the top 3 and maybe give region winners a bye in the first round if you did that, but take fewer teams in the playoffs is a good thing, I think, because nobody really gains much from, I wrote about it last week that ever since the table play went to 9 classifications, 6 in public school, 3 in the private school league, the average first round score has been like 41-6 or something like that. I mean, it's just been, it's basically mercy rule after mercy rule because there's so many mismatches. So I think, nobody really gains much from that. The teams that are outclassed don't really want to go get hammered. And so I think take it down to 5 classifications in public school, take your top 3 at the most in the playoffs, and probably even take it down to 2 classifications in the private school league, because I think even though some of those mid-sized private schools that may have to play up wouldn't like it, most of them have the resources at some point to play catch up and get there to where they could be competitive at the very least.
I love it. Steven, how do the good folks support everything you are doing over there at the Chattanooga Times Free Press this week?
Yeah, just check our website out. We'll have multiple stories every day on the playoffs on both our local teams and just kind of looking around statewide. At timesfreepress.com is the best way. I try to normally tweet out links to a lot of those stories, so you can follow me on Twitter or on X at Stephen Hargis, and it's Stephen with a PH. So, yeah, we'd love to have anyone that wants to follow us or to give us some feedback and let us know if there's anything that we're overlooking as far as storylines.
I love it. Steven, enjoy the week and keep up the great work, my friend. We'll have to check back in again soon. All right, we're back here on the Chase Thomas podcast, SRM Varsity, our high school football coverage during the fall right here on sportsrenaissanceman.com, where we've got a first-timer, Meigs County head football coach, great uniforms, great look, playoff game this week right here in East Tennessee. First-timer Nathan Simbeck is here. Nathan, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Doing good, Chase. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. So, like we said, is it good? I am kind of curious because one of the more funny, I guess one of the funnier things you hear expressions wise when it comes to football is like, oh, this is football weather. This is football. Is it actually football weather, Nathan? Like, is this kind of weather football weather, or is it not?
I would say it's not. I think football weather is hot weather. That's where you play, at least here in East Tennessee. Most of the year you're playing in, really, really high temperatures. It's humid, things like that. Now, when you get to playoff football, it does become a little cooler. So I would say it's not really football weather for high school football, but I could see why people say it maybe.
I love it. It's been a special year for you guys. Still a long way to go. Playoff time here. Big playoff game you're hosting this Friday night that we'll talk about. But did you see this kind of special seasons coming where you went into the playoffs undefeated in region play and just a really, really great season thus far?
I don't know if I pictured this exactly. But, we did return some players from last year, and we had some high expectations. I don't know if I was expecting 10-1, but I was, hoping that we had a lot of kids coming back and had some really good players on our team. So I thought we definitely had the potential to do something special this year when this year started.
When you think back, you're doing your summer installs, looking at your roster, spring practice is over, you have an idea of what the depth's going to look like. What is something that you and your staff, you nailed 100% when you were like, oh, this is going to be good? It could be a position room. It could be player, anything like that. What hit for you guys that you were like, nailed that one here in mid-November?
I think we've had just so many things work out for us. I'd say the biggest thing is we moved people around this preseason that started at other positions last year. We had a kid that started at guard last year, and we need him to play D-line this year. We had another kid that started off as a guard, and we needed him to play linebacker. And both of those have worked out really well for us. So Briar Roberts and Eli Lamb were those two players, and they've been extremely productive for us on the defensive side of the football. And then Briar's also transitioned from being guard and linebacker to also a H-back tight end, and he's been really good for us too. So been very fortunate to really hit on some personnel changes. Our secondary improved tremendously. And we became a little bit more explosive on offense with the skill guys we have back there in Caden Brewster and Tuff Ricker. So we've been very fortunate to get it right on a few different positions. And that's just really a testament to our kids and their work ethic and selflessness, because last year Tuff played quarterback for us and had a really good year, had over 1,500 yards rushing, had 1,000 yards passing, and then makes that transition to running back and has been a really big time playmaker for us and is sort of our spark and difference maker on both sides of the ball.
Is it kind of fun for you as a coach to need that kind of versatility from your guys where you're like, hey, you might be this one year, you might be another, or is it just like you would like a more traditional where it's like, this is kind of what you are and this is what you're going to be in our program for the next couple of years?
We certainly tried to make sure that we are developing kids and try to identify who we want to develop where. And then sometimes when you just have holes in your roster and you need to make some position changes, you got to do those things. But I think that's what makes high school football, and really, they do it at every single level. I think that's what makes football fun, is just the puzzle piece of who fits where and how do you make it work. I think that's the fun thing about coaching. It's been real fun for us this year, trying to figure out who can play what position. And then when you see the kid have success there, that's probably the most self-gratifying thing is, you're getting that kid to trust you, because sometimes they may not want to do that. They may not want to make that position change. But when they do that and you see them have success, that's the things you love to see when you're coaching them.
When you think back, I like the puzzle piece part of this. When you think about this season and now playoff time is here, like, are all the pieces, have you solved the piece of the puzzle, or are there still some big ones that you're curious how your team handles certain things with your playoff game on Friday?
I think for the most part, we've figured it out. It's just a matter of getting it right at the right time.
Yeah.
We've made some position changes and have different personnel packages, and we have those to be answers for us during the game. When a team does this or brings in this personnel, okay, we have this answer. When they switch back, we have that answer. So to answer your question, yes and no. We've got everybody settled, but we also have different packages where kids are playing in different areas to help us give us the best opportunity to win the game.
When you think about your schedule this year, and one of the things I think is interesting is Roane County gave you guys some problems offensively, and they were kind of the outlier there. Why was that important for your team to kind of struggle to a low scoring victory? And what did Roane County do that you got to see on film that you're like, we need to clean this up offensively for the stretch run of our season?
The big thing was the first half, we had a lot of penalties that set us back on drives that would have ended up in points, most likely. We had one play where it was a busted play and a guy changes direction and comes across the field, and we get two blindside blocks, and it sets us back and puts us in, behind the sticks in like 2nd and 20, 2nd and 30, and then you can't really overcome that. So that makes it difficult. And then the biggest thing that they did was they did a really good job at managing the time and keeping the ball away from us. The second half, we only had 9 snaps on offense before we started taking knees. We had one series where we went, we stalled out and had to punt the ball back to them. And then we scored on the first play of another series to take the lead, and then they had the ball for 9 minutes, and then we stopped them on the 7-yard line and then took knees for 4 plays. So we only ran 9 plays the second half. That was probably the biggest thing that hurt us. And that's kind of been a theme for us all year. There's been teams that have done a good job at sustaining drives, milking the clock, and only giving us a few possessions. Like we had 6 possessions the whole game. And you watch college football, and even other games we've had halves of football where we've had 6 possessions, much less a whole game. So they did a good job of limiting our opportunities, and then we didn't help ourselves by getting these penalties that set us back and sort of took away some opportunities for us to score. So that's the biggest thing that we had to clean up going into playoffs.
So let's talk about those playoffs. What about this matchup excites you on Friday night? What's going to be the biggest challenge that you're excited to see how your team handles it?
I think I love this because this is why you coach. This is why you play for big time matchups. It's exciting. Sequatchie County does a lot of really good stuff on offense and defense. So the chess match of coaches scheming each other's team, that's fun. And then there's always a lot of buzz and excitement around these games within your community. We've had, this week we got 2 radio stations coming out. We got Channel 3 News coming out to do the college game day type thing they do on Friday mornings. Just a whole lot of stuff that creates excitement for your school and your kids. So that's why this is so exciting. And it's just it's a big game, and you get to play it at home in front of a really good atmosphere and environment. So we're really excited about that, and hopefully home field advantage can be an advantage for us this week.
Stylistically, what's the biggest difference between your team and your opponent on Friday night?
They definitely throw the ball a little bit more than we do. They're more of they do a really good job with their run pass option game. The quarterback is a threat to run the football and pull it and throw it. And they do a lot of things that put you in conflict. They make you defend the whole field. They make you and not just run pass option. It's run, then quarterback run pass option. So like you've got to be able to, you got to play assignment football. You can't bust a coverage during assignment or they'll exploit it. So I would say they're probably different in that regard, that they throw it a little bit more than we do. Whereas we're a power gap scheme run team. We're gonna try to win the line of scrimmage, establish the run, get guys in space on the edge, and then take shots downfield in our play action pass game. And we're a heavy quarterback run team as well. I think that's kind of the equalizer in high school football. It's really the equalizer in all sports. If you look at NFL, college, everybody seems to have trouble with defending the quarterback run. So
why do you think that is?
Well, you just got to have. There's one more person you got to account for in the box. So like for us, we have a lot of 11 personnel sets. So that means there's 5 linemen, a quarterback, tailback, and then a tight end in the game. So that's 8 people in the box. And if we outnumber them, then we're at the advantage. Now, if they can stop us and we're still outnumbering them, then that means they're probably a better football team. If we're winning the numbers game and they're still stopping our run. So I think that's the biggest thing. And with the quarterback run game, you're able to +1 people, like I just said, and also you're able to influence people. You're able to give the illusion of an outside run, but then the quarterback keeps it inside. So you're able to sort of manipulate the secondary and things like that. So those are probably the biggest differences. We do the same things, we just do them different ways, if that makes sense. They do a lot of their stuff out of a 10 personnel, 4 wide receivers open package, and we're more of a 11 personnel tight end team, and we'll bring in a 2 tight ends, and they'll do the same. They just probably do a little bit more of the 4 wide receiver sets than we do.
Final football question for you, Nathan. The unsung tape hero for your team this year is who? Like when you get your Sunday or Saturday morning, Sunday morning film review, and you're like, look, he's not going to pop in the stats. Our fans are not going to see kind of where he's helping us in gigantic ways. Who has that been for your team this year?
Man, it's a lot of guys for us. Okay,
That's a good problem to have.
It's a good problem to have. There's several guys that are like that for us. Our kicker is one.
Really?
I will say that. Last week,
yeah.
And the reason I'm saying that is because if we don't have him and he didn't make the plays that he makes, we're probably not the 1 seed, and we may not be playing this week. Especially against Kingston. Ref subs out our holder because he has blood on his elbow. So we have to rush out our second string holder. Thank goodness we worked that. We work a second string holder, but our second string holder doesn't hold for our first string kicker a lot. He holds for our other kicker during warmups and stuff. He might hold for him 5 snaps throughout the week, and all 5 of those might be in warmups. I wouldn't think it's in practice.
Did you close your eyes for this kick?
No, it happened to be early in the game.
Okay.
So, and it was one of those things you think about it in retrospect and you're like, wow, that was a really big play.
Uh-huh.
And so we sub him on